I am here with Maria Brown for a Creative Soul conversation. She's with Serenity Wellness, and I'm Michelle Lee from Michelle Lee Arts, and we're just going to have a conversation about how we sort of got into what we do and how the sort of epiphany we had talking lately was that everyone's got freaking trauma. That was sort of the door of our own and often the door of our, students and clients. So take it away, Maria. You want to intro yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Michelle. It's so great to be here with you. So I'm Maria Brown from Serenity Wellness, and I am a neurosomatic breath therapy practitioner. So I combine breath work with creative wellness, and that is using movement, using art to transform energy that gets moved through breath work. And, our conversation about everyone's got friggin' trauma came out of the conversation as to how I got to this place. I'm a retired university professor and high school science research teacher, 25 years total, and went through extreme trauma in 2025, where I was moving through post-traumatic stress disorder from an event that happened with my son. And it was a long, arduous healing journey. And I had therapy, I had all of these different modalities. And it wasn't until I did breath work that that energy started to move to allow the healing process to truly begin. And that was holotropic breath work. And although I use holotropic breath work, which is a trauma release breath work, the form of breath work that I use for the most part of my practicing is soma breath work. So it's a more relaxed, gentler breath work. It still moves emotion. It moves all of that energy. And my favorite part is, transferring that energy onto a canvas as a form of meditation and just allowing it to be our moment captured in time on the canvas. And so that's basically what I do now. And even today, I did I combined breath work with inner child work. And so that was huge, a huge transformational moment for one of my clients, 2 hours, and then moving that through intuitive painting and just allowing the colors to come, allowing the movement to come, starting with words on the canvas and yelling at it or crying or whatever needs to come through, whatever emotion. And it's really powerful. But I love to do it. And again, like we said, everyone's got friggin' trauma. Like from the day you're born, you come into this life on a inhale, and that first breath is super traumatic. Our environment has changed dramatically. So whether there's trauma that someone consciously is aware of or birth trauma, trauma exists in all of us and it lives at the cellular level. So breath work actually allows you to move that at the cellular level. And we have a lot of combined modalities that we use. You use a different type of breathing techniques with your art. So yeah, share that, because what you do is really fun.
Yeah, so the whole epiphany about us all having freaking trauma that we were talking about recently was because I had like just accumulated like some big crazy events starting in childhood as a teenager, and I always managed to like shove those things up on a shelf, as compartmentalizing as so many of us do and think we're over it, or at least have been able to handle it when really we haven't handled anything. We've pushed it away. And then I was hit with a massive trauma in 2012. And I really lost myself on all levels. Like my friendships were falling apart, my life had changed, my career was falling apart. I was a new mom, new single mom. I was lost. And so initially I got into heart math which is a type of active meditation, though breath is a huge part of that. And that sort of opened the door to me then jumping back into my art and then getting my Tantra yoga certification, which has a lot of training in pranayama breath, which is, the yogic form of breath work. And I had looked around for all these things to see if there was like maybe a class that combined all these things just for fun, and there wasn't. So I ended up finding something called YogaArt online that I could get trained in, and that was what launched my first workshop. And what hit me when I held that was like I never thought of myself as a teacher. I was just doing it because I wanted to take the class and it wasn't there, so here I am teaching it. And as people were showing up, everybody was dealing with trauma, whether it was a divorce or loss of a loved one or abusive relationships. And that's when I realized the same thing that most of us, like you do, is that our pain becomes our purpose, and our mess becomes our message, as they say. And so that first heart math dip into like breathing and meditation together, which establishes heart brain coherence. I don't feel like I would have made any of those intuitive choices to move forward and change my life and like reclaim my original identity that I had always had and also put up on a shelf as I got my career and got married and started a family and owned a house and all that stuff that we all do as a natural progression in life. And then at some point, we hit this wall and we suddenly can't handle things that we used to be able to handle before. So the pranayama techniques I use, yeah, they are a little different. Usually they're involving also like with my workshops, there's some kind of body movement or kundalini energy we're moving. I know you work with that too. Um, I use heart math in my practices as far as I'm a trauma sensitive heart math practitioner, so I have some of that training to help people process that. And like you, I'm, doing the wellness, sort of using this creative outlet and all these different tools to stock our tool belts, because we get to this point in life where like our holistic tool belt is empty because we've overlooked it our whole life. We don't even, like you said about taking our first breath at birth, we don't even know how to breathe as adults. We're all breathing up here. None of us know even what the our diaphragm is. Where is it? How do you breathe through it? It's the most simple tool. And what I like to remind people, and I'm sure you'd have some input on this, is it's the only part of our autonomic nervous system that we can consciously control. And that's no accident. That is like a gift from the divine, from God, whatever you want to call it, to allow us to regulate our nervous system, tone our vagus nerve, totally shift our energy in times of stress or conversations, or God forbid, a horrible trauma, so that we can ride the wave and handle it to our best ability versus losing ourselves or losing it, as many of us, have gone through. So,
Yeah, there's so many things that you said that really resonate with me. One is that you had the yoga art, which I thought was amazing because all breath work is yoga, right? And I do pranayama yoga, pranayamic breath, you do, but it's all yoga. It all comes under yoga. And the breathing techniques that you bring into yours are a little bit different than what I do, is I bring them through journeys and awakenings and these longer um, breathing periods where there's music specifically designed to activate certain brainwave activity. So whether it's
mhm.
alpha or theta or delta, and the trauma that we push down then becomes highlighted when we are not self taking self-care, when we're not self-nurturing, right? And so in the event that had I been taking care of myself instead of everybody else's needs for all those years first, I probably wouldn't have crashed and burned the way that I did. I wouldn't have completely lost myself because my inner environment would have been stable, would have been able to be more
Yeah.
resilient than it was. It was not resilient at all. And all of a sudden, all these external forces came at me, and I went into this dark place that I didn't even know existed. I've heard people talk about depression and anxiety, and I had never really experienced it to that depth where I was so dysfunctional. And the problem with that is that when you mentioned, we don't even know how we're breathing. Well, breathing incorrectly, if you're breathing through the mouth or you're breathing through the heart space first and you don't have those deep breaths through the belly,
Mm-hmm.
that shallow breathing activates the upper lung. And the
Mm-hmm.
upper lung is the direct connection to the sympathetic nervous system, which you were just talking about, and the autonomic nervous system, which
Mm-hmm.
puts us into fight or flight. Whereas when we're breathing deeply through the lower part of the belly, taking those deep breaths, it hits the lower part of the lung, which activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which puts us into rest and digest.
Mm-hmm.
So if throughout the day we're breathing shallowly, we may be breathing in through the nose, but our heart space may be raising first. Those are shallow breaths.
Mm-hmm.
We are perpetuating a state of hyperventilation, and hyperventilation is fight or flight. So we are
Right.
perpetuating a state of anxiety because our body changes, our physiology changes in those moments.
Yeah.
And like everything changes. So we increase cortisol, we increase adrenaline, our whole digestive system shuts down, right? So that we can flee. That's our evolutionary survival response in this world. It's built in.
Right. Right.
And
And you
I
can be in
love,
that even, right? Like even like people think of that as far as, okay, if I'm in a car accident or I lose a loved one, but you can be in that flight or flight mode just with a meeting you have anxiety over at work,
right.
you
And
know?
just the breath throughout the day. It can
Right.
be a perpetual state, right? Which
Yeah.
interferes with your sleep, it interferes with your clarity, it interferes with your energy levels, it interferes with everything. And I love that you brought out that the breathing is the only part of the autonomic nervous system that we can actually control, right? We
Hmm.
can't control our heart rate, although through our
Right.
breath we can actually, right?
Right.
So
Right.
so
Without it,
through the
it takes
breath,
more training, right, to do
through the
that than
breath
to
we can
learn to
press
breathe out
that
of our
button.
belly.
Yeah, through the breath, we can press that button to actually take control of our own autonomy, our autonomic nervous system.
Yeah.
And in such short periods of time, you can shift just by knowing how to breathe. And in those states of anxiety, or in periods where there's grief, or in those times where you're recognizing all of those parts of you that have been pushed down and haven't been addressed, and they start to
Hmm.
emerge as adults, and they
Hmm.
show up in the way that we behave, they show up in our energy levels, they show up in the decisions that we make and the outcomes that come into our lives.
Yeah.
We can actually take our power back through the power of the breath, and then use movement and music and art as a form of expression, as a form
Right.
of release.
Yeah.
And when you combine all of these modalities, it's so powerful. For me, it is activating the pharmacy within.
Yeah, because
And
like I said with the tool belt, like you're not grabbing for one tool. Like so many of us, like you brought up, we run to therapy. Well, therapy is only going to work on the conscious level. Our subconscious controls 95% of what we do
yep,
throughout the day, whether we want to admit it or not, or whether we're even aware of it. And I think you hit on a good point when you said, when the real trauma hit you, that like and I think you'll agree, or I'd love your comment on how women, especially, and I know men also, have the same problem, but women especially are taught to be givers and to find their identity in their motherhood, in their, caring for others, even on the job, you're caring for your coworkers. We're such caregivers. And if we do not set ourselves up with those tools, a holistic tool belt, or like you said, inner pharmacy, where we can grab these things rather than looking for outside experts to come save us in the moment, we can just slowly apply these different tools. And that's why having this spread of things from, like you said, the creative wellness at the canvas to the breath work and pranayama to yoga and somatic movement, heart math, or whatever it is, that by embracing these things before we desperately need them, because we often come to them when we're in desperation, and then it takes years to come back to equilibrium. But if we can nurture those little things in each other and in ourselves and spread that word, which I know is a passion of both of ours, that gives us all that resilience to meet those challenges and be able to, of course, we're still going to grieve. We're still going to feel stress and anxiety and have a night here and there where we don't sleep, but we can literally cure insomnia. We can shut down depression and anxiety. We can get really access our intuitive power, and our immediately will speak to us when we're going the wrong way. So, the
I
women totally, I think, are shut down in 90% of the cases, at least in the Western world.
I agree. And a couple of points too that you said, like I remember, had I had any of these tools available to me at the time, I didn't, because I was operating in actually my masculine for so long, taking control of, not control, but like I was running the household and I was running my job and I was kind of
Yeah.
doing it alone. So there was a lot on me. Like I had forgotten how to even connect with my feminine energy. But
Mhm.
immediately when I went into this severe depression with the post-traumatic stress disorder, every
Yeah.
doctor wanted to put me on medication at first, and I was like, oh gosh,
It's like
no.
our paths
Like
are so
I
parallel.
just don't want that, like it just
Yeah.
doesn't resonate with me. I can't even remember the
Yeah.
last time I took an aspirin or something, like that just
Yeah.
did not resonate with me.
Yeah.
And so my whole body was like, you've got to get into nature. You've got to get out
Mhm.
there. So I went and hiked the Pacific Northwest for a month because I really needed to get my body to move. And the power of being in nature releases the same hormones as when you're doing some of this breath work and when you're
Mhm.
doing movement, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't know, this was all intuitive to do that. And I started to learn a little bit about tapping and a little bit about binaural beats.
Hmm.
And then, I went to Sedona. My friend Stephanie took me to Sedona and she said, you have to try this breath work and a sound healing bath. And I went, anything. I'm open to anything as long as I'm not taking any drugs. And
Right.
it was just life changing. And I will say that, I found myself in women's circles because women were able to bond together to support each other
Hmm.
in a non-threatening way. And I don't I I believe that men could have done that as well. It's just that my circle was women. And
Hmm.
so I found a commonality with women who are going through the same thing. So I do agree that, there are a lot of women that go through this kind of alone. And then when you find each other, you find that you're the best support network out there. And,
Yeah.
even in my social media, I would say 90% of the people who are drawn to my social media information on breathwork and painting, it's women. The
Yeah.
10% are men. And I do think that women, do take on a lot of this masculine energy and kind of put their feminine energy, I don't know where it goes, but
Yeah,
it's
I was going
not
to ask you, don't
at the
you think
surface.
that well, in Western society, it's all been about achievement and consumerism. So in our fight for equality, I feel like we went wrong and we thought equality meant the same instead of being of equal value, but in our own unique way. And don't you think that most of the women that you work with have thought most of their lives that being feminine is how they dress and do their hair and do their makeup and dance, maybe if they're lucky and have that expression. But they don't realize that that go-getter, taskmaster, running the household, running the kids' lives, running the relationship, running their careers, and not having time. Just the simple stepping away from self-care and the guilt women have over that. Don't you find that that's super common and that women have this confusion between, oh, I thought I was feminine because I'm all this on the outside, but feminine energy is all, the
Yeah,
internal and the energetic qualities, not the uh, female expression.
I agree. And I feel like when we tap into our feminine energy, for me, it's a good reminder even just to do some hip openers in the morning, like moving my hips to really
Mhm.
tap into my feminine energy. I
Yeah.
feel like my vibrational level is so much higher when I'm really connected with my feminine energy. I feel like my
Mhm.
energy levels are lower when I'm managing things, when I'm in my left brain. But when I'm in my feminine energy, I'm really feeling into my body, feeling really, really trusting in what my body has to say to me. And
Mhm.
if I have a decision, I always say the decisions that had the poorest outcomes in my life were the ones that I made with my head. And had I trusted the gut feeling or the feeling in my heart, well, my life would have been different. But I guess I'm
Yeah.
exactly where I'm supposed to be, right? Those are
Yeah.
all just lessons in who I'm supposed to be at this point. But I feel like the feminine energy is really important. And I love when I am in co-ed groups when we role play feminine
Mhm.
and masculine energy, because I always learn something more
Sounds really
about the
fun.
masculine energy,
Uh-huh.
and then
Uh-huh.
the men in the group learn more about the feminine energy, especially when you get them to start moving their hips a little.
Oh yeah, that's like
Um,
pulling teeth sometimes.
it's
Yeah,
really fun, but you
it
learn
is.
so much about each other, and you learn, and whether it could be a stranger or a
Yeah.
partner, right? You just learn so much more about how those energies um, show up in our lives and how
Mm.
we perform when we're operating out of those energies. I love being empowered, and I love being smart, and I love being creative, and I love to give to people. And now, tapping in more to my feminine energy, I love to give to me. And so
Yep.
one of the things that I
Amen to that.
wasn't doing wasn't giving to me, because it was like, oh, well, I can't, everybody else needs this. Well, who am I to go get a massage? Or who am I to say that I'm taking 3 days for myself to go for a walk in the woods and stay in an artist retreat somewhere? Or
Right.
and now I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not feeling right in my body. It's time for me to take care of me. And every morning I'll start my day with breath work and meditation and some movement, and then I get to start my day.
Yep.
And
Same.
I
And don't you think women confuse self-care? Like a lot of women have that guilt, like you're saying, like
mm,
especially women, even in the care industries, like nurses, chiropractors, massage therapists. They're the last person to go do actual self-care, and they're out there selling or making a living on it. And instead, they might think, well, I'll have some retail therapy this weekend, or I'll get a pedicure and all that stuff. I feel like, yeah, that's nice. That's like icing on the cake, but that's not actual self-care. You're doing nothing to really nurture your inner world. Retail therapy is just a distraction like drugs or
mm,
food, or anything else that's like sort of based in that consumer society. And don't you think that often you see a lot of the people showing up at your events and for your coaching are, in addition to being moms and, maybe caregivers for their parents or for their husbands or whatever, do you often see that some of them are also like in the care industries or the medical industries and yet are doing nothing to nurture themselves on a mind, body, spirit level?
yeah. and they're in a state of overwhelm. So, you know, that when we discuss the fact about like, well, you'll have more energy and you'll have more time when you slow down, right?
Right.
Because their energy will be conserved. And when you slow down your breath and you slow down a little bit and you take that time for yourself, maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
journaling, maybe it's just
Right.
Zen doodling, maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's just to sit outside and listen to the birds. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is, that self-nurturing, it's like it ignites everything in you because it recharges you at the cellular level. And so important, you know, we're always just like, yeah, but I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. Well,
Mm-hmm.
no, we
Mm-hmm.
get to do this, we get to do this. And yes, everything's going to get done. And when you take a moment to breathe, really breathe deeply and just be in the
Mm-hmm.
moment and
Mm-hmm.
slow everything down, there's more time, there's more energy, and you're in a better place, not only to receive, but to give, right? So people
Yeah.
who are in the healthcare industry, they give so much of themselves every single day
Right.
that I know friends of mine that are nurses, they are wiped out at the end of the
Yeah.
day, just
Yeah.
completely wiped out. And I remember teaching us, if I would have known that speaking for 2 hours, 3 hours as a teacher or professor, you know, sometimes your lectures go on for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That you put yourself in a state of hyperventilation just by the short breaths that you have to take throughout
Oh,
a 3 hour
interesting.
period.
Mm-hmm.
But if every 40 minutes, everybody stand up, take a deep breath in, let's just rejuvenate, right? Because the kids are like this, you know, after 3 hours, they can't take it
Right.
in, right? And at the high
Yeah.
school level, they're like this in 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, like just slowing down, you're still going to get through the material, you're still going to get through what you have to do, and you'll be able to deliver and receive much better, much more efficiently, and your energy will be conserved. Because when you're doing that, when you're hyperventilating or you're not self nurturing, you're literally burning the energy at the mitochondrial level, the energy powerhouse of your cells, and you're exhausted afterwards. You're contributing to cell death
Yeah.
and to oxidative stress, which brings on disease. So to have the power of our autonomic nervous system to regulate it, to self-regulate, if we're given the tools,
Yeah.
is incredibly powerful for body, mind, and spirit. And yeah, I love that you bring that up. What do you
And don't
find
you
with
think
like
that these,
your clients?
yeah, don't you think these tools that we use, they're so simple and so
Mm,
easy to access once you have training that most people negate them and are like, "Ah, I take a walk in nature. Yeah, I walk down my street or I take a walk at lunch around the block." And it's like, no, that's not what I mean. Or they'll say, like I don't have time to meditate or I can't clear my mind. And when you actually find out more about it, it's like, well, that's fine. It's just the process of trying to clear your mind or being aware of the rat race in your mind is enough. You don't have to feel like you failed. And so, you know, what you said about how you start your mornings, I love that because my mornings are the most sacred part of my day.
yeah.
And they are all about me. And of course, my dog and my daughter are in there somewhere, being taken care of. But they set the entire tone for my day. And so I'm able to write into that to-do list and any challenges or annoyances that come up in the past where I might have been like freaking out over things that aren't that worthy of freaking out about for the most part. Now I'm just like, oh, so everything went sideways. Oh, well, you know, it's another day in the life and I can ride that. So do you think that this is one of my theories is that that morning time when you wake up is the most sacred time for self-care and that most people jump right into the news, which is like programming you for fear all day, or social media, which is like this competitivism, you know, and to me that's the worst thing to jump into as soon as you wake up, or even
I
worse would be
agree.
like right to your email for your work, you know, like
Oh gosh.
should not be jumping into production and to do as soon as you wake up. That's my theory. What do you
I
think?
no, I agree. It is the most sacred time. And you know, a lot of people will wake up, like you wake up because, and you start listing, right? You start listing the things in your head that you have to do right away.
Yeah.
And that's when you really, that's the first clue. Okay, I need to stop, slow down, because that's just the story that's in my head. And so
Yeah.
to clear that, counting really helps. So if you're counting, breathing in for a count of 4, holding
Mm-hmm.
at the top for a count of 4, breathing out through the mouth for a count of 4. As you're counting, you can't be thinking about anything else because you're focused on the breath and you're
Right.
focused on the counting. So it helps you to regulate the nervous system. It helps you to bring your body back into homeostasis, bring everything back into balance, because balance
Mhm.
is never balance. It's never neutral. It's
Right.
always wavering,
Yes.
right? It's always this movement of
Yeah.
balance, but it's not this, right? So
Right.
you've got this flow, right? This flow that is just amazing. And I remember even when I was teaching, I had a rule of thumb that I would not open a single email until I got into the school, until I got into the
That's
building.
great.
I
I
was
love
not
that.
leaving my house opening up emails, and I was not looking at emails after 7 o'clock at night. That was a rule for myself, just so that I could have some inner peace,
Yeah, I think that's
sleep.
really critical because most companies will not honor people's personal schedules. And like I found in my previous career doing, which I still do, but like doing branding and marketing and stuff, like there, I don't care what's going on. There is no emergency in marketing like that needs addressed at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. I mean, unless you're at a trade show and the exhibit collapsed or something ungodly like that. But
Right,
that's almost never the case. It's like someone's emailing you about your competition, or like I'm sure you have examples of maybe there were updates on class or lectures or some new event you had to attend. And again, that can be dealt with during the business hours. And so, honoring your personal time, that morning time, that cut off at a certain time of night, and then disconnecting from the gadgets and reconnecting to nature, to your breath,
mm.
to your body in some ways.
It
All those
sets the
things
tone.
that seem so simple add up to be like this massive shift
Yeah,
in your
it's
life. And I've seen it in
yeah.
me, and I've seen it, you've experienced the same stuff. And then our students and coaching clients too. It's like phenomenal once they start to harness these little bits of their inner power that they've just been overlooking and let lay there floundering, like they're not even being noticed, and we have
Yeah.
these tools at our disposal.
Yeah, it absolutely sets the tone for the day. And you're so much more in flow and so much more productive
Hmm.
when you set that time to really connect with yourself in the morning, to kind of clear the space, to
Yeah.
clear the stories that can start in your head, the listing, and just breathing in, going for a walk. My favorite thing was always walking early in the morning.
Hmm.
In
I
the
love
mountains up here, when I
sunrise.
woke up, it was -4, so I wasn't going for a walk this morning. But now my walks are in the afternoon in the winters here.
Yeah.
But it's really healthy to just start the day, with a walk, with breathing, with a meditation. And there's so many guided meditations. And even if you go
Yeah.
somewhere else, like that's okay, because your subconscious, just like what you said, your subconscious is taking it all in. Even
Yes.
though, even if you're asleep and you put a meditation on, your subconscious is taking it all in.
Right. And
And
the thing is, like, you're training your brain, so you can't expect success or whatever you think success is on day one or even day 401, like I love this saying, and I forget who said this. You might remember, but it's like somebody complaining that, like, well, I don't have time to meditate, which I hear all the time. And because you're like, well, even just 5 minutes a day, just, and they're like, I can't be still, I don't have time to meditate, or on this certain day I was just too busy. Well, on that day then you should meditate for an hour, because That's the truth. Like you will have so much more space in your energy level and your production
Mhm.
level and with the creative stuff that you and I teach or that, you know, people just do on their own, like if they love to cook or garden or do woodworking or whatever their creative outlet is, the more you allow that as a daily practice, don't you think that that's connecting the left and right side of the brain and like you said, allowing not just a balance, but like this interconnected weave like this union of yoga, you know, that's what yoga means
Right.
to fully activate. So we are not just trying to operate from this left linear side of our brain all day that is a real taskmaster that we you know there's always going to be some connection even if you're not doing creative stuff between left and right hemispheres of course but when you
Right.
really nurture the right side and you honor it as much as the left don't you think that that intuitive power becomes so much more accessible and heard and shows up in your life and allows you to then be more creative on the job or be more innovative or meet those challenges and flow through life with more resilience.
Absolutely. You know, just that openness, right? Just that openness to the possibilities in the morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being open to time for yourself, creating that space, openness to the possibilities that can unfold throughout the day is what
Mm-hmm.
allows the space for that creative flow. Uh, there are a lot of people that talk about, well, you know, I'm blocked, I have this creative block, or you know, I don't seem to be able to focus when I'm at work, and
Yeah,
I'm not getting what I need to get done or what I want to get done. And in those moments, it's so important. The same as when you're meditating, saying, "Oh, well, it doesn't work for me. I can't do it," is to allow yourself grace. Like give yourself some
yes.
self-compassion and grace, because success is all about how you define it. So for
Yeah.
me, it would be, well, this was successful. I gave myself 15 minutes this morning. I'm not sure where my brain was during the
Right.
meditation, but I gave that success, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's the
That's success. So
100%
it's all
success.
how you define what the success is. And even if you feel like you were failing, right, then it's
Uh-huh.
failing forward. It's learning from the moment and say, okay, how can I be more present? Well, maybe I'll be present for the first 3 lines of the guided meditation tomorrow morning, where I lost them in the first 5 words, right? There's
Yeah.
success. And, you know, just exploring from a place of curiosity, it's
Mm-hmm.
very easy for us to say what we don't have time for. It's so much
Yeah.
harder to say, I'm going to commit to
Yeah.
5 minutes a day to see where it takes me out of a place of curiosity. And I invite my students all the time, my clients, to just invite the stuff that feels uncomfortable from a place of curiosity. Embrace the uncomfortable because that's where the growth happens. If everything's
Absolutely.
easy all the time, where's the growth? But
Yeah. And if
as soon
you
as discomfort shows up, I'm like, I see you.
Yeah. And you know what? It's so funny you brought that up because and it's interesting how you can use these things to change your inner dialogue. And it's not positive thinking. It's like you're retraining your brain. You're building new neurons in your brain and you're shutting off those ones that are the worriers, the anxiety, the fear, um, chit chat, you know. And one of the things that's I picked up during a fitness workout years ago that the instructor said, and I repeat it all the time inside is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I
Love
say
it.
it just like that in my head with that same rhythm. And it's how I face anything that I need to jump out of my comfort zone. And it's actually become sort of my thing is like, oh, this is really uncomfortable. I got to do that now because I am like fueled by my curiosity. And even though some things take longer to work up to, of course, um, I think that like you said, just approach it with little bits of time. Like just say, okay, I'm just going to give myself 5 minutes. I might not think of myself like I'm ever going to be someone who meditates or someone who does yoga every day or someone who's an artist making masterpieces, but that's okay. What if you
Right.
can just take 5 minutes to yourself every day,
Yeah,
because in another month you'll be like, wow, I think I could do 7. And then,
exactly.
before you know it, a year or two's gone by. And if you look at it like every day, you just improve 1%, right? Just 1% any of us can do. And a year later, that's 365% we've changed.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
amazing. It's so funny. Every morning when I wake up, I'm always like, I'm checking to see which nostril is clear, right? Because when the left nostril is clear, that means the right brain is really active. So I'm like, okay, should I start out with
Oh,
something creative?
interesting.
Or
Uh-huh.
if my right nostril is clear, that means my left brain. So it's like, oh, should I do my taxes? Like, should
Oh,
I
God.
do
Oh, I
something that
never heard
actually
that. That's so
requires
interesting.
thought?
I thought you were going to go into alternate nostril breathing, which I
Well,
did.
that's a good way to balance it, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
5 minutes of alternate nostril breathing is great. And if
Mhm.
you're listening to us and you don't know what it is, just YouTube it really quickly. But it's
Right.
so easy to do. You can do it for
Yeah.
5 minutes, and it activates the left and right side of the brain. That's one of the things that's so
Mhm.
great about breath work. And you can do just five rounds of alternate nostril breathing. You can do it while you're getting up, going to the bathroom,
Right.
and moving around. You don't even have to sit in one place. You can walk around doing it. You can
Yeah.
check to see, am I breathing through my belly? Is my, put one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest, and just
Hmm.
walk around the house and say, okay, I'm belly breathing. I know what that feels like, instead of chest breathing, where
Yeah.
this comes in, or you're breathing through your mouth, where that's raising first, because that's a state of hyperventilation and anxiety all day. When
Yeah.
you breathe through that belly, those deep breaths, right? You're going to feel more relaxed, more focused, more creative, more
Hmm.
centered and grounded. And
Yeah.
even just standing and breathing for 2 minutes, digging your feet, like they call it mountain pose when you're in yoga,
Hmm. Yeah.
but digging your feet into the floor, getting the toes to kind of dig in and anchor you,
Yeah.
feeling that grounding, closing your eyes, and just imagining this energy coming from the ground up through your feet and all the way up through your body and then out through the crown, and breathing through that for 2 minutes, it changes everything. It's a
Yeah.
whole focus grounding ceremony that you can do for yourself in 2 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. I love that.
Love it.
Well, I think that's a good little technique to give people as we end today. And I just wanted to say we are going to do these like on a monthly basis. We love getting together and talking about all these things that we use in our lives and that have changed the lives of people we work with. So, please drop some comments when you see this video. Let us know what you liked, what you have questions about. Um, and of course, would love you to follow both me and Maria on our channels. And Maria, do you have anything you want to say before we sign off?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would add, thank you, Michelle. I love the fact that you're asking them to comment, because I'd love to be able to bring the answers to questions to them, things that they
Mhm.
may not know how to resolve, or I'm having problems sleeping. What can I do to fall back to sleep when I wake up? Or, I'm having I have a panic attack. How do I shift that really quickly?
Mhm.
Whatever it may be, or I'm waking up with low energy. How do I shift that? Like, I love that idea of being able to bring to everybody some of the things that you would like to know more of. And
Yeah, so
Serenity
not only can
Wellness
we
is
reply in the comments, but we could make our next video about, some of
yeah.
these things if you
Yeah,
find.
and you can find me, Maria Brown Breathwork, on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, on LinkedIn. So you can find me. I have articles. I've got full sessions of breathwork that are available out there. And yeah, I think this is so much fun. And again, like our first conversation was, well, everybody's got friggin' trauma, right? And so what is it that everybody needs to know? You have so many gifts to share, and I love that we're collaborating to bring this kind of accessibility to some of the things that you can't really find too many classes on, right? Who's got
Yeah.
breathe and paint? Like, nobody. Every time I say I do breathe and paint, they're like, what? Do you do sip and paint? And I'm like, well, if I do, it's breathe, then sip, then paint, right?
Right,
So
right. Yeah.
but it's not just sip and paint. there's a whole method to the madness, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think it's just a wonderful opportunity. I'm so grateful to be here with you and
Thanks.
combining all these powerful gifts that we have to share with others who it resonates with. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Good, you're welcome. Yeah, I think I just want to end by saying, like, we all think that as we're walking through life and dealing with these different things, whether they're traumas or just challenges or change points in life, that we think it's so unique. And I can tell you that every class, every coaching client I've had, we are all going through such similar journeys. Like, we find out we all have, either PTSD or chronic insomnia or massive gut problems or panic attacks, like you said, or whatever, like grief of a loved one. And I had a class recently that, you know, eh, of the people who showed up there, like more than half of them had just lost a loved one. So you find out in these communities, and as we help each other, that we are all going through the same things. And so the more we can help you by these conversations and our offerings, and just like you said, we'd love to reply to your comments or, have our next conversation about something that you comment on. So
And I
thank you
love
so
that we're
much.
never alone, right?
Right.
Nobody's
No.
ever alone. We've all got something that somebody else is going through. So
Yeah.
nobody ever needs to be isolated. Nobody's ever alone. And that's beautiful. So thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
welcome. Thanks for joining me, Maria.
Oh,
And
pleasure. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. And so for anyone who catches me, you can also find me under Michelle Lee Arts, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. So hopefully we will see you next month. We're going to be getting together again on the first Wednesday of each month around 1 o'clock. This video will post a little later than that, but wonderful. Thanks for joining our Creative Soul conversation today.
Yep. Love. Love to you all. Bye.
Bye.